They are lethal legacies of war. Landmines present a constant hidden threat. Special correspondent Fred de Sam Lazaro reports from Cambodia, where the danger is part of daily life. But an unlikely battalion of animals is making a difference. This is part of Fred's series, Agents for Change.
Let's face it, rodents rarely trigger warm, fuzzy feelings in most people. But these African giant pouch rats, being gently awoken from their cages, are called hero rats by their handlers. They have names like Harry Potter, Godiva, and Frederick, no relation. After getting sunscreened up, this rat pack of 11 animals is headed out before dawn to a former battlefield in rural Cambodia. Their task, sniff out landmines.
Everyone was surprised, even me. When I heard that the rats are also detecting landmines, it was like something unbelievable to me.
Mark Shukuru is head rat trainer in Cambodia for the Belgian nonprofit Apopo. He's from Tanzania, where this species is also native, and he learned early that they have some of the most sensitive noses in the animal kingdom. Each comes out of a rigorous program in Tanzania that trains them to distinguish explosives from other scents. Each time they sniff out TNT buried in this test field, a trainer uses a clicker to make a distinct sound, and they get a treat.
So TNT smell, clicker, food. TNT smell, clicker, food. TNT smell, clicker, food.
The drill can take up to 12 months before handlers are confident that when the animal scratches in place, an explosive is buried below.
We've never missed anything with the rats, so we are doing good.
Rats have a number of advantages compared to human deminers, who must rely on metal detectors. They detect a lot of scrap metal. These are, after all, old battlefields. They litter, but they don't always contain explosives, whereas these guys are trained to sniff out TNT, which is the explosive in most mines.
Since 2016, Apopo's hero rats have found roughly 500 anti-personnel mines and more than 350 unexploded bombs in Cambodia. They are the second animal to be deployed in mine clearance. Dogs were first. Animals can work much faster than humans, although when the land is densely mined, metal detectors are considered more efficient. Tuch Lee, who heads the government's demining effort, says there's plenty of work to go around. The ministry has exhaustive maps of areas it calls contaminated.
We come up with the numbers that are around 4 to 6 million anti-personnel landmines in this country. So we still have a long way to go.
That translates to a lot of contaminated land in this largely rural agrarian country, an economic and existential threat.
We have more than 26,000 people killed and injured over the years. 30% of them are women and children.
It is the legacy of 3 decades of conflict that ended in the late 90s. In Cambodia's west, landmines were buried by the genocidal Khmer Rouge regime and by the Vietnamese army that drove them from power, alongside the new Cambodian army. In the east, near Vietnam, lie millions of tons of unexploded American bombs dropped during the war.
We hold like this, be careful, don't press on top here.
This may be the only country with a landmine museum. It was started by Aki Ra, who was conscripted as a child to fight for the Khmer Rouge.
We cut the wire.
He laid mines himself and has spent much of his adult life trying to remove them. He disarmed many of the devices on display here and says his goal is to raise awareness of what mines can do.
The children during my time all went through it, but it seems like the children growing up during this generation, are not aware of the danger or the casualties of landmines that still occur today in Cambodia.
Tens of thousands of Cambodians live in close proximity to the dormant killers. This school was just steps from the minefield we visited with the Apopo rats.
People are forced to enter these contaminated areas quite simply because they don't have a choice, because their livelihoods depend on it.
Rebecca Letvin works for the British Mines Advisory Group, one of several aid agencies working in Cambodia.
And this one is the mine that we found and destroyed.
27 years into the collective effort, they've freed up some 18,000 acres. That's less than 1/10 of the terrain considered contaminated.
It's important that we don't forget what happened here in Cambodia, and we don't forget that The country itself is still very heavily contaminated.
This year's toll so far, 11 killed and 51 injured. At this regional prosthesis hospital, a steady stream of victims arrives each day to be fitted or refitted with artificial limbs.
The old one was getting really tight, especially around my thigh.
39-year-old Sna Him stepped on a landmine in 2002. Like many patients here, he's a small farmer, growing rubber and cashew nuts with his wife and 3 children.
I'm always very careful when I walk in the fields because I am worried that it could happen to my other leg. I feel very upset that I lost part of my body because it prevents me from doing other activities that normal people are able to do.
Meanwhile, the various demining teams continue to inch forward with the tedious, dangerous work. There's little evidence anymore of the hostility that drove the shattering conflict. Old combatants have moved on over time, but Minister Tuch laments so has the world's attention.
I think there's a moral obligation for everybody involved in war in the past. I think that was a Cold War, and then small nations like Cambodia been victims of these.
Apopo plans to bring in some 40 more rats to expand the force and replace retirees. Each animal works about 8 years and then lives out the rest of its days alongside fellow heroes. All working toward the day when they can broadcast to the world that Cambodia has destroyed the last unexploded bomb. Its big task is to convince enough donors to help with the cause. For the PBS NewsHour, this is Fred de Sam Lazaro near Battambang, Cambodia.